Hello guys, this is Trigger from Basilisk, and today I'm covering a series played between Clem and herO in the Kungfu Cup. This was 2 days ago. I keep casting replays from the Kungfu Cup. That's just happens to be that's where the good games are at, I guess. But I'll be casting, or not casting, but rather reviewing games from many different tournaments and many different games. So, and also let me know in the comments if you have like a certain series that you think is worth for me to review. I can definitely go over that. So the game opens up with herO proxying. And he's going to proxy Stargate here. Now this is not the most crazy build that has ever existed. This has been done before. This was recently played by Zaun in the RSL as a response to proxy. Of course, in this game, this is completely blind, so herO has not seen anything yet, and he went for it. So this is just a gamble by herO, but it's not like an all-in type of gamble. It's just hoping that the Terran doesn't happen to play Cyclone or Viking or whatever. Ideally, this is up against like 3 Reaper, 2 Hellion, and then they have no anti-air. But in this case, Clem is already going Tech Lab, and if he built a Cyclone here, he'll be completely fine. And herO actually just sends a Stalker straight across the map and defends at home with the Adept. And this is, I think this is a good move, because there's no bunker here. So this pretty much denies this base from being mined for the moment. Of course, this Oracle will join up with the Stalker at some point as well, which can be dangerous. But the bad news for herO is that there's a Cyclone in the way, which counters everything here. Now herO sees this, so he should know it to eventually get out. But he knows he has some time before the Cyclone's out. So he's going to try to get as much damage as possible before that. He's going to probably lose his depot at least. Clem tries to defend, but he actually gets all the units, but doesn't repair the depot. So ultimately, that was a very good trade for Clem. And I'm not sure exactly why herO didn't just get out with the Oracle when he had the chance, because he knew a Cyclone was on the way. This was all very risky from herO. Of course, when you go for a build like this, you need to get some damage done. But I think herO could have been satisfied with just denying this base for a little while and keeping the Oracle alive for future value. So definitely a mistake from herO, because he should have known exactly when the Cyclone's going to come out. So Clem decides to use his units to maximum value. This is one thing that Terran players definitely should be doing, and they try to do always, is making sure that every single unit that they build is doing something. So if you build a Raven, you should be harassing. If you're building a Medevac, you should be harassing. If you build a Reaper, you should be scouting, etc. And you see that Clem's units are not wasted. He has pretty much nothing at home, but he doesn't need to be worried about anything, because he knows that this was a proxy Stargate opening. So there can't be really that many aggressive options for herO at this point. That's why Clem is able to just freely roam the map. And herO does try to punish Clem for the move out, but the thing is that Clem's micro is just really good. Now for the players who are like watching at home, watching this review, you don't have to play like this. If you're the Terran in this position here, you can just play it safe. So all you really need to do is kill this pylon and get out. This Stargate is unlikely to get repowered in the future, and even if it does, like, are you really scared of a 7-minute Oracle? So I think Clem here got greedy. It's probably because he trusts in his micro so much that he decided that he could stick around. But if you're playing in your own games, I would highly recommend to just go home after you kill the pylon, and you should be happy with your position. Clem sticks around. He loses some more units as a result, but still a good position for Clem. Now, one thing I didn't mention here is that there's actually 2 SCVs here that were idling for like 4 minutes. So, quite a big handicap for herO, I guess. But nevertheless, I would still say Clem is in a good position here. So herO went Blink into charge. When you open up Oracle, even if it's Oracle at home, you have to follow up with usually you have to follow up with just Blink into charge or just straight up into charge. And the reason for that is because if you open Oracle, you really don't have the gas to go Colossus or High Templar in time for the push. So you have to rely on charge lots, which makes you pretty vulnerable to SCP pulls and such. herO also trying to make the most of his units here. is what you should be doing with Blink Stalkers. If you want to play Blink Stalkers, you have to be very aggro. You can't just sit back and do nothing. And Clem goes for the triple medevac drop. So this is after he killed the Observer. So there was an Observer here, I think. I mean, I should... No, maybe there wasn't, but I should check. Because if there was an Observer, obviously this move out would be very bad. But I don't think herO has an Observer yet, so... Okay, so that's what he was waiting for. He was waiting for this hallucinated Phoenix to be dead and stuff before he can make this move out, so... This was well done by Clem. He knows that there's not going to be a second hallucinated Phoenix right away because it takes time to gain the energy. That's why he moves out right after, or right away. And he doesn't have to be worried about getting scouted, obviously. And this is quite strong for Clem here because herO does not notice this. And now he finally scouts this, but it's too late. herO luckily has enough energy for a recall here. But Clem did a good job of pouncing as soon as he recalled. So there's already some damage on these stalkers done. And while herO did a pretty good defense there, the problem now is that you haven't managed to get much value out of these stalkers. Usually what happens is as the Terran comes across the map, they have to walk across the map and your stalkers get a lot of value. In this case, they just had to recall home and get nothing done. So this is a very good situation for Clem. And we can also note that Clem did not get a +1 with his attack. So usually Terrans in the past would get +1 with their first push, stem push. But these days Terrans actually delay this for more units, and this is something that's pretty new. I don't know if it's going to stick around or if it's better, but this is recently how Terrans like to play. And this is just a terrible blink by herO. I don't have much more to say than that. Into the Widow Mines. Like once the Widow Mines are fired, then maybe you can consider a blink like that. But generally speaking, you never want to blink forward into the Terran unless you just have a completely superior army. And even then it can be risky, so definitely don't be like herO in that situation. And now the game should be over, right? Like it's 9 stalkers here versus all these units. But Clem is being a bit scared. He does, not sure why, but he kind of let herO a bit off the hook here, but it's still a bad position, of course. These 4 zealots get nothing done, and yeah, the problem with just Blink and Zealots is that you can't really deal with Widow Mines that well. You have no AoE as well, of course, which is just difficult against Terran, so you just have to rely on your Blink Micro. And he finally uses these 4 Zealots to come back and flank. So this is something you want to usually do against tank pushes, because tank pushes are very slow, right? They have to slowly crawl forward with tanks. And this gives you time to cut off reinforcements with Zealots. And once the Terran starts rallying at the home base, because they can't rally across the map without getting cut off, that's when you use these flanking Zealots to then flank the main army. In this case, herO went for a gamble. So if we go back, we can watch this again, where herO makes a big mistake. And now Clem kind of just chills for a bit. And herO decides that he needs to take a risk here. So he sends 4 Zealots here. Now these 4 Zealots look like they shouldn't accomplish much, right? But actually these 4 Zealots pretty much saved herO in this case. And remember that herO is pretty much already dead here. So he needs to go for risky plays. So it makes sense for what he did. So first he shows Zealots at the front here. Clem knows there are Zealots here. So he's not going to be sending his units out to rally and reinforce this army. Otherwise they'll just get cut off by Zealots. He doesn't know exactly how many Zealots there are, but Clem would not take that risk. And as a result, Clem is only left with this army, and that's all he's going to ever have here. And then these Zealots are going to come back and fight together. So you can see how that turned out to be a very good situation for herO. What Clem probably should have done is just, as soon as he saw these flanking Zealots, he either needs to just send it, because you need to believe that you just have more than your opponent if they have Zealots out on the map. You can always scan and then make a decision, or you need to just go back. I think just sticking around and doing nothing is the scariest thing to do, because you're eventually going to get flanked. and you're gonna have no reinforcements. So that's the most risky way to play. So herO manages to survive, which is really impressive considering how dead he was. But he still has no tech. He's trying to get Colossus eventually, but that's going to be quite a while away. And herO is just going to continue to be harassing with Stalker. This is what you should do if you have the APM. Is that you should always poke at the enemy with Stalkers. Even if you get caught out like this, it still creates openings. It still forces the opponent to stem. So it's not bad even if you lose a Stalker or two. The more important part is that you're staying active. Keeping map control. Now, I think a lot of my viewers at home who are playing Protoss probably would not be this active with Stalkers. So let's look back and examine exactly why this is very important. Because it is crucial if you play Blink that this is how you play. Let's say herO is not out on the map here, and his Stalker's just chilling at home because he's scared that he's just going to lose them. Then you don't know where the army is. So this zealot run by is already risky because you don't know where the army is. It could be here and your zealots will run into it when you attack. Or the army could be doom dropping you for all you know, or they could just be on the map somewhere. The point is you don't really know where the army is, and that's a big problem against Terran. So these Stalkers keep vision. That's the most important part, not just picking off one marine or two. That's just side value. Of course, it's really nice if you can keep full attention to these Stalkers and not lose them at all, but it's hard. But you can see that herO still takes this as an opportunity to do some harassment and lose some mining time. And yeah, Clem handles it well, but regardless, this is what herO needs to do. herO sends out a drop as well. So he wants to keep Terran at home, basically. This is his goal with all these run bys. This is why herO is staying so active. If you let the Terran just come across the map untouched, they're going to have a better armor than you. In a straight up fight, Terran usually wins, but Protoss has a lot of evading mechanics that you need to take advantage of. But Clem decides that he's had enough of these harass and just he needs to send it because his hero's eco is getting out of control. And this is kind of the thing about Clem, and that I think the Terran, if there's any Terran players watching this, is that you can't get too caught up with these run bys, right? Like often when I play Terran players that are not like pro level, these kinds of run bys force the entire army home all the time. It happens all the time. And I think you guys know what I'm talking about as well. So let's look at what Clem did here. 4 zealots here. Just use your reinforcements to clean that up. It's only 4 zealots. And this main army just needs to keep going. Does Clem even waste 1 second not going? No. Doesn't even F2 for a second. He just keeps going. Which is really well done by Clem. And defends everything pretty well here. Only 6 SCVs. And now herO just has to pretty much give up this base. As a result, he's gonna try to punish Clem, but there are way too many units here. Of course, that move was kind of a distraction for herO to go into the main. And this is quite tough to deal with as a Terran. In this situation, you do need to rely on just making sure you grab some reinforcements to home. So you can see even these units that were all the way at the third are coming back home. So Clem is keeping aware of where all of his units are and is able to send everything back to defend this prism. But he kind of gave up control here a bit too easily. So this is a small mistake by Clem. He should have perhaps tried to get away with the libs earlier, or just get away with the army at least. Now he's going to get chased and lose a lot more than he had to. So that is, all these distractions did end up giving herO some kind of value in the end. So it's not just about what damage the harass gets, but about the intention as well. So herO has split Clem's attention pretty well here. And that at least got him 2 medevacs, or 2 liberators and a bunch of units. So not bad. Now Clem has to defend here. There's not much the Protoss can do in this situation to actually kill the Terran. But I find that what often happens in these situations is that you can use this as an opportunity to get more harass done. So I would have liked to see herO maybe try to get this prism in the main again through here. On this map particularly, it's very easy to get in. So this army in a straight up fight probably doesn't beat Terran. Like I said earlier, like in a straight up fight, Protoss usually doesn't beat Terran. But if you have 4 zealots here, you need to split off, you know, like 12 marines. And that's a positive trade. Or like you need to send more units than the Protoss does in when it comes to small fights. So I would like to see some kind of zealot run by here would be more efficient, I think, by a herO. But of course it's hard, you do want to reinforce your main army, I understand that. But this is never going to work in a straight up fight. Unless you just have way more units, of course. But we can't assume that that's the case. And in this case, obviously Clem does have more units. herO does try to just send it anyways. And we can see that he kind of gets punished for it. Yes, you kill a lot of workers, but losing your whole army is kind of a big deal. So herO gets cleaned up. And it's kind of amazing. Like, you would expect... Like if I was in herO's position here, I would die in the next, 1 minute. But somehow he survives for another 3 minutes. So I don't know what it is about herO, but he's just very good at surviving. He does have 2 Colossus here, so maybe Clem still needs to wait for more Viking count before he can attack. Strangely enough, it's herO who's actually attacking. So this is another one of those moments that I find hard to explain. I mean, at the end of the day, whether or not you fight here or here, the difference is not huge. And maybe with this you have a higher chance of catching the Terran off guard, and they have a late stem or whatever. But it still feels counterintuitive to me, at least, to send it when you're the one who has to play defensive. And it looks like in this case it didn't really work out. So maybe, yeah, I'm not too sure if that's the best way to play it, but it could be that herO just thought he was dead anyway, so he may as well do something crazy. And from here, Clem should be able to close this out as long as he gets more Vikings. He's kind of keeps building medevacs, so he built 4 medevacs. If this was 4 more Vikings, I think it would be an easy kill, but this is good enough as well, of course. But you can see the Colossus count is way higher than the Viking count at this point, which is kind of a problem. You never like to see fights like this as a Terran, where you're getting juiced up by Colossus when you have no Vikings. I did think Clem made a bit of a mistake here not having higher Viking count somehow. But he had too big of a lead to really lose a fight here, so herO did a good job surviving, but it's pretty over. And we can just kind of go to the end here. So this is a pretty crazy game in the end. I think both players had a lot of opportunities to perhaps end it earlier, but it's really difficult against herO to end the game very quickly because his defense is just really strong. So all things considered, I think herO played pretty well here. Considering the situation he was in the early game. Of course, these 2 SCVs idling probably saved his neck a little bit. But yeah, I mean, Clem is just a little bit too good to let that lead slip. And I think we saw some really good moves from Clem, like the triple medevac move out from the start of the game. That is maximum activity. So I think especially a player like Clem is gonna believe in being as active as possible, and if you have the opportunity to get on the map unpunished, then you should take it. Now normally in these situations, the Protoss will have an observer here, or if you kept the Oracle Lab, there'll be Revelation, and this move is not possible. But in this case, where there is only a Hallucinated Phoenix as the only scouting, this move is possible. So it's important to recognize when you have opportunities like this, and when you don't. So just because you see Clem do this once doesn't mean you should just copy it right away. You need to wait, or you need to do this move only when it makes sense. So in this case, it made a lot of sense, and it was really well played by Clem. And yeah, that's kind of just got Clem in the lead. So this was a best of 3. And I'll go over the second game. So this is the second game played between herO and Clem. And I was actually doing this recording, and I ran out of disk space mid-recording, so I ended up just doing the whole review for no reason. Now I'm doing it again. But I think this ended up being for the better, because I have a lot more to talk about after reviewing the game once. This is my second review, the extra detailed review. Now I know everything that happened in this game. So first I want to go over this low ground wall here in PvT and why most players won't play it these days. So first let's talk about why this low ground wall can be good. So first, if your opponent goes for eBay block onto your natural, you're going to see the SCV come in, and it's going to be very easy to handle the eBay block. The second reason is if you open Zealot or Adept, you can get across the map very quickly, and in this case, this is what herO did. He chronoed out an Adept to send out across the map very quickly, and tried to deny this base from going up, or not deny, but slow down the space from going up and potentially get some SCVs. Now, the trade-off here is that, first of all, this Ripper can come up the cliff and kill a probe, and it's going to be very hard to deal with. Your battery is always going to be like a little bit late. So you can see this Ripper actually did get a kill in this game. And the main reason is that if you make a wall here, then it's going to be very easy for a Terran to later come in and kill this wall with a tank push, or even like, let's say a Terran just happens to be going for like a proxy Marauder or a proxy Marine build, and they put a bunker right here, and you're pretty much completely dead, because there's not really much you can do to stop that bunker from going up, and this unit and if everything here will die. So all these vital structures going down will obviously be game over. So that's why we don't really see it these days. But herO probably knows that Clem doesn't like to proxy too often, so decided to take that little gamble and try to get himself an early lead by harassing. But Clem handles all this very well and does not lose a single... Well, he loses his SCV in exchange for the Adept, which is a very good trade for the Terran player. And this Reaper got a second kill during all of that, which we didn't get to see. But that all happened at the same time. So these pro players are obviously dealing with many things at the same time. And this Reaper gets a third kill even. So this is pretty crazy. And he gets out, which is insane, by the way. So this is insane Reaper control. And this is... yeah, this is kind of the reason why we don't always see pro players sending their Adept across the map anymore. Is that it can just be very risky against a Reaper. Even just one Reaper. And Clem scouts the third base. So he knows it's not going to be like a 3-gate blink or a 4-gate blink. So you don't need to add the second bunker. And you don't have to go for 3 tanks. You can just stick with 2 tanks or even 1. Or sometimes 0 even if you get that information very early. So Clem just built a standard 2 tanks. That's kind of like the default number. And we see Clem also went for Cloaked Banshees in this game. Which did get scouted by an observer here earlier in the game. Which I didn't show. But basically Clem did not get anything done with the Banshees yet. And herO is well aware of it, so that's why he has an observer here. And an observer here with 2 units. So in the end, despite all that Reaper damage, this is actually a pretty good position for herO, because these 2 invested Banshees got 0 kills. Like literally 0. Which is insane. You almost never see Banshees get 0. But we will see later in this game that these Banshees in fact clutched up the game. And this is a nice move from Clem here. This is a move we often see, because every top Protoss player was going to have Stalkers at the front. So what you can do is you can try to flank these Stalkers with a medevac drop. Now you have to be very careful when making a move like this, because if there's an observer here and you try to make that move, then these Stalkers, if there's like a lot of Stalkers, because you don't know the attack count, can just kill the medevac. So you need to be very careful with this move, and you need to make sure there's no observers. You need to make sure these medevacs are safe. But in this case, Clem probably saw that there were no observers. And he knows that there's no observers because they're probably all at home dealing with these Banshees. So I'm making a pretty good decision here. And these Stalkers are going to be in a bit of trouble. But we'll see if herO can get out. And we can see that Clem was quite light to stem there, actually. So he kind of gets out. And I think Clem was hoping to get every single Stalker here. And he really tries hard to catch them, but... in the end, still a good trade for Clem. And you can see the supplies really show that. Now, what's really baffling about this game to me is that herO saw that he had a good early game and decided that he can push his lead further with a quick 4th base and double forge. And to me, this seems way too greedy. And Colossus. So this is not just charge lots. And that's why he has so much gas to do all this. This is Colossus with range. And he still needs to build a sentry for defense, because sentries are very important for dealing with bio units in the defense, because Guardian Shield is just insane these days. So he needs to afford a sentry, he needs to afford Colossus, he needs to afford double forge. And he needs to warp in more Stalkers, because he just lost all of his Stalkers, so he's eventually going to need to warp in more Stalkers to deal with drops and stuff. I just don't see how he's going to afford all this while taking a 4th base. So to me this seems completely insanely greedy. I also wouldn't recommend taking this forward fourth. Like, you can do it, but obviously the push is going to be really quick, and it's going to be very hard to stop. And also he loses the closest to Banshees, which is insane. So after a really good early game, or like, because of the Reaper kills, it's not that great of an early game, but like, let's say a decent early game, herO is suddenly 30 supply behind because he's spending all his resources. He's getting gravitic drive. Like, I can't even explain how insane this is. Now, I appreciate herO for trying to get warp prism speed. Or this is warp prism speed, because it can be very useful, and I think it's underrated for sure. But like, man, you need to survive first, and I feel like herO is maybe overrating his, or he thinks his defense is like impenetrable or something. So you can kind of see here that even if there were 2 Colossus here, this would be a very difficult defense. And yeah, I don't know what herO can even do. He doesn't even have the gas for charge. So herO doesn't even have charge here. And yeah, there's not much you can do here. He even loses his warp prism, so that gravitic drive isn't very useful without any warp prisms. So herO just kind of dies here. Of course, it's herO, so he managed to survive a little bit longer than most Prowesses can, but yeah, he definitely played way too greedy. And without charge especially, you can't defend a tank push. Charge is very crucial for tank pushes. And also without charge, you can see that Clem is rallying every single unit across the map here. And this is not always possible against charge, because you can always just flank with a couple of zealots to cut off reinforcements like we saw in the first game. But if the guy doesn't even have charge, you don't have to respect that. So that's really well done by Clem to recognize that. Now, I think in most of my viewers' games, the Terran player is probably like F2ing across the map 24/7, or just sending the rallying point here. So it's really important that if you have charge, you cut off the reinforcements and punish this sort of rally, which is considered to be a bit risky in pro play. You guys can do it too. You guys can punish these amateur moves. And we're just gonna see herO die. So yeah, herO played bafflingly greedy, and I don't know what he saw that could even lead him to believe that he can get away with it. It's not like Clem had a super early 3rd command center and then you can go for something like this. So I think that's pretty crazy. But I think what we can look at is herO's really good early game read here. So I think herO had, other than the Reaper killing 3 or 4 workers, I think herO had a very perfect early game strategically. So the first thing you need to understand is that your opponent is playing Reaper Hellion. Like, you saw a Reaper and you saw Hellion, so you know it's Reaper Hellion. And at this point, you don't really need to respect the tank push, like a quick tank push build, because they have no Marine count, and you also have a Hellion, which does not really add value to that push. So if he does go for a tank push, it's going to be very weak. So this is why herO does not respect it at all and keeps his first observer home. And normally, if you lose your scouting adept, you kind of have to send this observer across to see what the Terran is up to. But herO knows that tank push is not really worrisome, so he doesn't really need to check on what Clem is doing, and rather just focus on defending any harass. Which, by the way, cannot be Widowmine drop at this point. So Widowmine drop hits at 430. It's well past that point. herO knows that. So he's already expecting Banshee or Raven, probably. And that's why this observer is just chilling at home. And if you look at herO's vision, he has no vision of his opponent. He doesn't care. There's nothing to be worried about. So he gets to see this Banshee, and from there it's smooth sailing, because you know you have all the information you need to just play as gritty as you want. If this was Marine first into Banshees, it's a very different story. Then you need to respect the tank Banshee push. But obviously this was not Marine first, so this is extremely well done by herO. I think he just got a bit carried away, unfortunately. And we can't forget that Reaper killed like 4 workers. So overall, I think herO showed some reasons why he's such a strong player. but we also saw that herO sometimes makes mistakes that just no other pro players would even think about making a mistake like that. You know, like no other pro player would go double forge Colossus 4th base at 7 minutes like this. That's truly unseen behavior. And it's good to see that he gets punished for it, to be honest, because if he gets away with that, then I'm not sure what that says about Protoss. But luckily he didn't get away with it. And he loses the series 2-0. So that's my review of this game. Let me know in the comments if you guys have any games you guys want to see me review, or questions that you think have not been properly answered by me. And yeah, I'll see you for the next video, guys. Bye bye.